And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Call me with your questions at 888 Car Clinic. Joining us on the line now is Jeff Dent, Category Manager, Fuel Systems, Delphi Product and Service Solutions, North America. Jeff, I want to welcome you to Car Clinic, and that's an impressive title. Share with our Car Clinic listeners and viewers the essence of your role at Delphi.
Well, thank you, Bobby. My role at Delphi is to make sure that we have the fuel products that our customers and our consumers are demanding, make sure that they're in the product line, and that we have the sales coverage available for any person who has, a fuel system problem. So if you want to boil it down, I'm in charge of the fuel systems product line in North America, and my job is to make sure that we have the product that consumers need when their fuel pump fails.
And to that end, Jeff, having operated, and to this day, my team spends 50 or 60 hours a week in Car Clinic service pre-repair, and we install Delphi fuel pumps. Let's talk a little more about fuel pumps. Give us an overview of the important role that fuel pumps play in today's high-pressure systems and redundancy.
Sure. A fuel pump is a key part of the total fuel system. When you're talking about fuel pump in general, you're also referring to the vehicle fuel system, and that vehicle fuel system, it's important that it's getting the right pressure, the right flow at the right time from your fuel pump, getting that fuel from the tank to the engine. You got to have a pump that's rated out to meet that OE spec, that original equipment spec. That's, our job is to provide a good quality pump that meets the OE specifications for each vehicle fuel system. The important side of that is if you don't meet those OE specs, you will create stress on that vehicle's fuel system.
To that end, OE, and folks, OE means original equipment manufacturers. That's the car makers. And Delphi not only offers and provides aftermarket fuel pumps, but Jeff, isn't it true that there are multiple OEMs that Delphi supplies parts from the factory? So when folks buy a new car, they're getting Delphi parts?
Absolutely. We supply many of the top vehicle manufacturers with fuel product that are on vehicles today. So, that's definitely a good side of the business for us. And part of the appeal of getting a Delphi pump is in almost every case, you're going to have the same part that's on that vehicle. If we're supplying it, it's also in our package or in the box going out to the consumers as well.
And Jeff, I would like to also bring up the difference between the entire fuel pump, the module, versus just removing the module. And folks, the module means that just think of it as a canister, maybe the size of a coffee can, and you pull it out of the fuel tank. And sometimes that's can be hard to get to, but you pull that module out, so you've got a labor involved, and then you've got the individual fuel pump that is mounted within the module, and the module sends signals electronically to the car with regard to the fuel gauge. So it's a little more expensive to replace the entire assembly, i.e. the module, which is the way, quite candidly, Jeff, that's the only way that we replace fuel pumps in our customers' cars because we know that works better. But you, as the maker, share with our Car Clinic listeners and viewers the advantage of replacing the module versus plucking the old pump out and wiring the new one in.
Yeah, sure. I think the one advantage is that it makes the job a bit easier, right? You got a full module that you're replacing. You basically take the old one out and put the old one in. With just replacing the pump, you're going to have to do some disassembly. You're going to have to make sure all the connections are good, from the old module to the new pump. So there's a little bit more room for error there. And basically, I think the second advantage really is that if you're replacing the whole module, there are other things that could go bad on a vehicle's fuel system. So if you're just replacing the pump, you might also have a bad connector in that module assembly that forced that pump to go bad. So by replacing the whole assembly or the module, you're getting rid of all that room for error.
Well, I've been there, done that. I couldn't agree with you more. We're talking with Jeff Dent, Category Manager, Fuel Systems, Delphi Product and Service Solutions, the North America. Question that I had, Jeff, for you was how difficult it is to diagnose and replace a fuel pump. We've already sort of touched on that, but folks, I really would like for you to hear from Jeff, and you've already gone there a bit, Jeff, but I think it's important that car owners understand that while it's a little more expensive to replace the module, you've got all the factory connections, you've got all the fuel gauge connections, and you take the risk of undoing and making connectors. And even if you didn't have a problem with a connector, it can happen if you unplug a connector and then reconnect that same connector from the old part to the new part because they've lived together till failure. So I think you and I agree the module replacement is the way to go. What about the fuel tank? Is cleaning the tank important?
Absolutely. I think cleaning the tank's important. It's part of what we call the complete job. Basically, what you're going to have is if you have any kind of contamination in that module, any dirt or any rust in your fuel lines or anything like that, going to make its way into the fuel tank, and sooner or later your fuel pump it has a strainer attached to it. Your module or your fuel pump will have a strainer attached to it, and it's going to get saturated with dirt and debris, and the only way to get that dirt and debris out of the vehicle's fuel system is to clean that tank. So it's important that you clean the tank in order so that you're not replacing the fuel pump multiple times for the same issue. So you might come in, in 1 month and replace your fuel pump. The next month have to replace another fuel pump because there's still dirt in the tank.
You mentioned strainer. I know that the strainer, and folks, a strainer is sort of it's not like a fuel filter, but it does keep out small bolts and nuts or anything that's, it's not like, I don't know what the micron. Do you know, Jeff, you happen to know what the micron rating is on a strainer?
It does vary. I'll say most of the strainers that we have in the line are a 30 micron rating, but it does vary depending on the application.
So that leads me to how important and how often should someone replace the fuel filter located outside of the pump as, number one, for maintenance, number two, to take a blood sample is what we call it, or to take a look at what's coming out of the tank. What's your recommendation?
Well, most of those fuel filters nowadays, they're on the older vehicles, right? So in many cases, the newer vehicles have the fuel filter on the assembly. But in the cases on the older vehicles, I would just follow the vehicle manufacturers normally have a recommended replacement on the fuel filters, so I would stick with that. But as part of, if you're replacing a fuel pump, anytime you do that, I would always check and probably replace the fuel filter as part of that complete job.
We're talking again with Jeff Dent from Delphi. Jeff, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to spend with us and sharing with our Car Connect listeners more about fuel and fuel systems, and specifically the Delphi fuel pump module. Where can our Car Connect listeners go for more information? A website, if you would.
Sure, they can go to delphiautoparts.com, and then they can also go on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube and follow us there. Again, Delphi Auto Parts. And those are the places to go.
Jeff Dent, Delphi. Jeff, thanks again for joining us on Car Connect today. Great to have you in the house.
Appreciate it, Bobby. Thank you so much.